4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the joint meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board and School Committee. It's Thursday, January 31st. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our agenda tonight is just one item, and that is to fill a vacancy, one of the vacancies on the school committee, to return them back to a quorum. Normally, our process in select board and joint meetings would be to ask for announcements and then public comments, but I'm going to take a few things out of order, and I hope the reason for doing that will become obvious as we go through that. We're going to hold the public comments a little bit, but just want to know if there are any, Stephen, or Marty, if there are any announcements that we should let the community know about. We're okay? No. All right, as long as, thank you. So with that, I just wanted to start out by giving a synopsis of what's occurred since the Monday evening meeting and lay out a little bit what the procedures or process is going to be tonight and where we're going to go. So following Monday evening's meeting, actually on Tuesday morning, there were a few votes taken, and I communicated with our town clerk, who adjusted or will be adjusting the town election warrant for the June 11th warrant to election to add 3 one-year terms to the school committee. That was a vote we took to advise the town clerk to do that, and that has been done. We've also advised, it's actually a joint operation between the select board and the town clerk, that we are advertising for positions to be filled on the school committee using the appointment process of the town of Long Meadow. And that appointment process, as we worked out, will ask people to submit self-nomination papers that are due into the town clerk's office by February 21st at noon. That's, I believe, a Wednesday or Thursday, but it's the 21st at noon. And the interviews are scheduled for February 25th. And the earliest we would make appointments to those positions is March 4th. So that has been posted in accordance with the state laws and town regulations, and people who are interested in being considered for appointment those times should see the town clerk for the papers. Over the next 2 days, I've had multiple discussions with our town council, the most recent of which was yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, where the policy, the procedures, the steps that we're going to be taking tonight were reviewed. Our town council has opined that they are consistent with Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 11, and following that, I communicated those what we plan to do tonight to the members of the school committee and the select board, and to our town clerk, and to the superintendent of schools and the town manager, so that we all knew what was going on, what was going to happen tonight. And so I wanted to now share that with the public and the people that are here. So we have received a number of people who have, or self-nominations, or people who have expressed interest in serving or being named tonight to fill the positions for the vacancy on the school committee. And I'm choosing my words carefully, as you can tell, because there are legal requirements for the words that I use, and that is that we are filling the position. Okay? We've received a number of names, and we're going to go through those names shortly. Some of those names were received in different manners, but the process was that names should be submitted to members of the school committee, select board, or the town clerk, and that was done. Shortly, as I said, we're going to go through and list those names, make those names public, and start our process. But I did want to make certain that everybody was aware that there is no defined, agreed upon, either legal or town process for doing what we're doing tonight. The process that we have in town is a process for appointing people two boards, and we are not appointing somebody, we're actually filling a position. And that's a distinction that needs to be made. And so, because there is no process, what we're going to be doing is letting people who are interested in letting the select board or the community know of their interest beyond this, use the public comment session to make comments. We're going to try to, as we do in all public comments, ask people to hold it to just a couple of minutes, no more than a couple of minutes, but thinking that that would be a fair process by which people who do wish to address this joint committee would be able to do so, and again, do it through the public comment. There will not be interviews tonight, and some people have expressed, how are we going to conduct interviews? We are not going to conduct interviews. The appointment process, which will be done in February, has a provision for interviews and for question and answer period. That process was worked out over a pretty lengthy period of time with, between the Select Board, School Committee, and a bunch of attorneys back about 7 or 8 years ago, and has been adopted by both the Select Board and the School Committee. Without an equivalent process, there really was no way of doing that tonight, so there will be no questions and answers, and that's the reason that I'm using this period right now to address everybody, and more importantly, to let anybody who may be here, who may be either just wants to address this board on the process we should do, or how we should talk, or you can talk about trash pickup if you want to. It's a public forum and public comment session, so you can do that for a couple of minutes. But following that period of public comments, I'm going to open it to this committee with an effort to ask the committee to express or come to grips with what we believe to be the characteristics of what we're looking for in the appointment we're going to make tonight, what either skills or knowledge or experience or whatever is people want to say, and people have a chance to do that. While we're doing that, I will not entertain a motion to put a name into for consideration while we're going through that discussion period, nor will I do that until such time as those discussions are completed. And so everybody's heard that beforehand. Now the public has heard that's the process that we're going to do. And it's then and only after we've had a chance to have everybody express at least an opinion on the process that they hope to use, or the priorities they hope to use to set that, will we begin to or potentially discuss and the names and the candidacies, and then try to entertain a motion to fill a position. We will fill only one position tonight. There is no circumstances under which we will fill more than one position tonight. This is being done under a provision of urgency to get the school committee back up to a quorum, and we have a process for appointing people to vacancies while there is a quorum. So we were going to use the appointment process in late February to fill the rest of the spots. Tonight we will be filling a position appropriately. So that's kind of my summary of where we've been, what we've done in the interim, and where I hope to take this meeting. I appreciate all the comments that we received after the last meeting and running up to this meeting. I think most of us, I suspect, have received comments. I certainly did. And so I think we are where we need to be. At this point, I'll stop where I am and ask the members of the Select Board and School Committee on the board here if they have any comments that they want to address to people. Bill?
Well, I know that there's several of these letters that we got where people would hope to have a longer period of time to serve rather than the 4 or 5 weeks or whatever it's going to be.
We're going to discuss that.
Okay.
We'll have a chance to discuss that again, okay? Just to confirm that. Any other comments? Great. So I just want to conclude this by saying that the names that I have had submitted either to me or to me directly or to me through our town clerk are the following people. And I think the order is just the name order I've written them down in, so it means nothing. Gerald Duquette, Larry Starr, James Ryan, Janet Robinson, Matthew Miranda, W. Timothy Mitchell, Jamie Hench, and Susan Bell. I don't know, are there other names that people on the panel here have been asked or talked about?
No.
No? No? Okay, so, and, so with that list of 2, 4, 6, 8 people, you know, I'm gonna now go back to our regularly scheduled agenda and open the floor up for public comment. And again, it can be public comment about why you wish to serve, or some other issue addressing, hopefully, the topic of how we should serve people. So if anybody'd like to make a public comment, please identify yourself and, sure, come on up. Just please, hold on, you gotta, the microphone's for the camera, so you gotta make sure the microphone can hear you.
Do I have to sit?
Yeah, you really ought to, so they can hear you.
It's usually not my problem. My name's Mike Lieb, longtime resident Barrington Road. It's a twofold question. One is a process question, and as brief as you care to be, I'd appreciate it as well. I'm not familiar with the normal process, not what we're addressing tonight, of whether a school committee person is elected by popular vote or is appointed. And if it's an appointment process, if you could just briefly tell me how long their term of office is, normally, and can they be re-elected or re-nominated or re-elected, or whatever the process is. And number two, I would like to request, as a citizen, as a person, and as someone who's orientated as much as possible towards fair play and transparency, I would like all members of this gathering and those with me in the audience to hopefully make this, result of all this, produce a product that's fair and equitable to everyone concerned. To me, that's the most important thing in the end. And maybe the end result of that fairness will be that the students, people of Long Meadow, the boards, and all other people that are interested in these things can say, yeah, we did a good job. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. I would comment that normally our public comment session is not a dialogue, and we don't answer and enter into a dialogue, but this question was pretty specific, and I think it probably deserves to be answered of what the normal process is. So, you know, election's an election. I think people understand the election. I have to conclude that once somebody is on the school committee, whether it's by us filling the position as we are tonight, or by appointing people as we will do in the first week in March, or through election, which is what we will do in June, they're a school committee member. They're a school committee member with all the responsibilities, authorities, whatever it is, of school committee members. There's no, well, you're only there for a couple of months, so you're there tomorrow, you're a school committee member. So people need to understand that there's no difference between a school committee member who may be elected for a 3-year term, somebody elected for a 1-year term, somebody appointed for 90 days, or somebody, you know, positioned or placed there through filling the position for something shorter than 90 days. You're a school committee member. At the end of this meeting, hopefully we will end up with somebody being placed on the school committee. We will fill a spot on the school committee. Before this meeting closes, I will review in obscene and obnoxious detail the next steps for people who may choose to apply for an appointment in February and March, and hopefully at that point that question will be answered. Okay. Any other public comments? All right, seeing none, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm sorry.
You got 2 more back here, too.
Oh, no.
Slow down.
Thanks. Thank you.
Hi, folks. I'm Larry Starr, 81 Williamsburg Drive, Long Meadow. And I have put my name into the list of those who have an interest in serving the town in this particular way at this particular time. Just a little bit of background. Though I've never served on the school committee, I spent 17 years, which we believe is a record in Massachusetts, as on the high school council. A good number of ththose years I spent as Larry Burton's co-chair of the high school council. I also have served in many other aspects in the town, including in the schools. I was the co-chairman of the Long Range Plan, the last one we wrote with Marie. That must be 10 years ago, I bet. And I served on the district learning team back when that was in vogue. I served way back when technology was almost unknown, helping bring technology to the building on the technology committee for a good number of years. And I've, in the way distant past, been involved in the election of members of the school committee, where I served as either campaign chairman or fundraising chairman or something like that. So I've had a connection with the schools for a long, long time, and I think that my background as a business owner, somebody who has, I've also served in a couple of task forces that were problem solving for the town. For example, Water and Sewer Task Force I co-chaired, and I co-chaired the committee that basically got our retirement money away from the local folks who were handling it, got it back to the state so that we could hopefully make some more money on it. So I had a lot of involvement. I think that I would be able to help bring some calming nature to the current situation until we can get a full board elected. And so that's the reason that I put my name in the hopper. So thank you all.
Thank you for your comments. I apologize, there's somebody else who wanted to speak, please.
Oh, well, very good, sure.
Gerald Duquette, 69 Claremont Street. I'm very pleased to see that there are several names on that list, so I just wanted you to know that I gave you my name, and because if it was necessary, I'd be happy to serve for the 2 or 3 weeks or whatever the case may be. My intention was to fill the 4th seat merely to give them a quorum. I'm not interested in running for the office. I'm not interested in staying any longer than is necessary. And since I see all these very qualified people, especially Janet Robinson, I think she should do it.
You going first over there?
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Hench. I live at 40 Eastham Lane. Unlike Gerald, I am interested in the 4 weeks. Also interested in the interim between now and June. And I know that I'm one of the very few here. I'm not even sure if there is anybody else that's actually interested beyond that. Whether it's a 1-term or 3-term, it is what it is, and we'll figure that out as a group and a community. But I am very interested long-term. Why I'm interested long-term? I have 4 little boys. I have 1 child who's a 6th grader at Williams. I've got 2 children who are currently at center school, and I've got another boy coming to center school next year. So very interested in this. I'm very interested long-term in where we are going with the direction of our schools. That's why I got involved. The reason why I'm here and why I threw my name in the hat is one of watching the meeting last week. By trade, I am not an educator. I don't have education experience. That's not why I'm here. I heard a lot of discussion about finance. I do have a lot of financial background. Currently, I own an Ameriprise financial business over in East Longmeadow. Prior to that, I ran corporate finance for a multi-billion-dollar company and hundreds of employees prior to transitioning over to Ameriprise. So very comfortable with budgeting, very comfortable appropriating money. And prior to that, I was in education, albeit it was in athletics. I was in Division I athletics down in North Carolina, where I met my lovely wife and ended up in Longmeadow, Massachusetts. So I'm originally a Pittsburgh person, so I'm a Steelers fan, so we're not going to bring that up right now. So, sorry, just dealing with that. I was in education. I was doing appropriating funds. I dealt with compliance. I know how to do grants. I know how to do contracts, and spent a number of years in university with their system, with how things work and how you get done within that, and the different types of budgeting. You know, the budgeting within universities versus corporate versus your own personal that I do now is very different. But I've seen all of those sides. So listening to everybody last week, it did sound like there was a concern and a void from a financial standpoint. So that's why I threw my name in the hat, and was very interested in coming and not just doing the 4 weeks, but also doing it because I think you need a little bit of continuity. I think we've been through a lot, And I think having the continuity disrupted by all these elections and things, I don't think that's good for the community. So I threw my name in the hat, very interested in doing it, with the number one reason, because I have 4 little boys that I would like to, have a very good education system for them. So, okay.
Thank you for your comments. You got- You're going to have to move to the front or you're never going to get here, I think.
Hello, everybody. I'm Susan Bell, and I threw my name in the hat as well. I was the last one on the list there. I'm here tonight. I live at 157 Captain Road. I have a 3rd grader at Blueberry Hill, and I have a soon-to-be kindergartner at Blueberry Hill as well. And I'm very interested in serving in the short term as well as the midterm position, I'll say, until June. I have 17 years of experience. Somebody else said 17 years too. I thought that was interesting. In education specifically, I served most recently as superintendent of schools in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. And I served the remainder of my career there as an administrator, principal, assistant superintendent, you name it, I've done it in that district. My primary reason for wanting to serve on the school committee is very similar to what everybody's stated. Want to provide some stability within this transition. Want to help from the standpoint of having the experience of working on a school board and understanding the work pretty deeply. While I haven't worked in Long Meadow specifically, I certainly understand the responsibilities and roles of the school committee. I've been in numerous negotiations of contracts. I've prepared and secured and presented and budgets. As far as the responsibilities of a school committee are concerned, I think that's really the focus. And, as a superintendent, I had the opportunity to be part of a governance team. This will be, sort of moving to that more of the, obviously the school committee. We have a superintendent, right? So really focusing on, what policy work needs to be done, what needs to be done as far as the procurement of a sound educational budget, specifically projected itemized expenditures. I think that's what most state laws are written as. And so, I think I can bring a lot to the table in this transition period, knowing that I'm going to need to learn the Long Meadow system, certainly, but and humbly, but at the same time understanding the process by which all of the work really gets done. I know that the role of the governance team as well is to ensure that the superintendent and all of the staff can do their jobs, because what needs to remain seamless is the day-to-day work for the children, and that's the most important piece. So I hope that, I believe very strongly that I can bring that stability to the school committee, both in that short term and as well as the midterm. I also, I currently serve as a member of the school council at Blueberry Hill. I was elected to that position. I'm also on the board of directors at Long Meadow Montessori, because that's where my daughter goes to preschool. So I hope you'll consider me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's good to see a lot of you guys again. James Ryan, 117 Crescent Road. I've sat before this panel before. You've interviewed me. I'm happy to take any more questions down the line if you have them. I guess a couple of highlights. I'm still an educator. I'm still working in a place where we are working to address the achievement gap, and we are succeeding. I'm helping build out a school. And I would also highlight my work in the past as the chairman of a countywide board with a constituency of about 1 million people, and how we had a situation where a budget and operating policy had not been adopted on time for about 4 or 5 years, and under my chairmanship, it was the first time that we did. So when it comes down to working well under pressure and under a bit of a deadline, this isn't something I haven't seen before. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the period of public comment. turn, Richard, you okay with that now?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
just-
I don't see any
just checking.
hands. I'm the hand checker.
I mean, this is so heavy here, let's lighten it up. What I want to do is, first of all, I'd be remiss not to thank these 8 people for submitting their names and putting their names up in public. You know, whatever happens here tonight, I thank you very much, and I strongly encourage, I mean, I read through the letters, I mean, these are really 8 really well-qualified folks. And I strongly encourage people to really put their names back in if you're not selected tonight for being placed on the school committee, that you consider applying for the appointment in February. It really is just a very, very strong pool of people who've come forward, and I really can't thank you enough on behalf of the entire town of Long Meadow. It really is great to see this happen. So having said that, what I wanted to do was, at this point, there has been a couple of requests, and Bill Lowe just commented on it, about taking another look at potentially the term of the appointment this evening. I know that there have been some questions that come up about it, and so I'm going to open that up for discussion, if there is any. And I've had enough discussions with our attorneys that if the legal questions come up, I believe I can answer it in the way that they would if they were here, and they were unable to be here tonight. Cool.
I was just going to say, if what we decided, which I think we did, that this is going to be a short term, 4 or 5 week, whatever it is, I would ask that anybody who wouldn't agree to that, in other words, whoever selected is going to have to sign a resignation letter before you're sworn in. If anybody here won't do that, then you should maybe raise your hand and bow out.
Richard?
If I'm not mistaken, didn't we find out that our last meeting, there were some judgment errors that we made and what we thought we could do, and like having somebody sign a resignation letter, we have no authority to do that. I mean, they don't have to do anything like that. And I think there's been a lot of conversation that came forth, that even from some of the current members up here, that we possibly were in error when we rushed to judgment to solve this issue, and the fact of having this appointment only be for a couple of 3 or 4 weeks, that it should have been an initial appointment to get the board functional, but that it should have been an actual term appointment that we were putting in. That it didn't have to be just a 1 or 2 week, because the discontinuity of that is remarkable, of having somebody in there for 3 or 4 weeks and then they possibly resign and don't come back as the 4th new member. So I think there's an issue before the board of maybe correcting, as far as I'm concerned, a past error, because after I sat and thought about it, I'm sorry that I didn't speak up that night. But what we proposed was, it just really wasn't that smart. It didn't make sense when you really sat down and thought about it in the after hours. And Mark, I understand you may have had correspondence this week, or people have talked to you. I know I've talked to a couple people about the issue too, and it just doesn't seem fair that we would proceed in that direction. I mean, it's more than just a warm body. We're asking somebody to step up, show continuity, come in, bring the board back up to speed, so they're an operational board. And I think it's much different than just asking somebody to fill a space for 4 weeks.
So, go ahead, Tom, and then I'm going to kind of...
Yeah, well, I think, again, we're in a situation that's pretty unusual. And, I don't see, the original motion that we made last week was to name someone for a period of time. And that came about as a result of basically the members of the school committee saying that, they really wanted to have all of these seats open to the whole community. And, in reading the materials that people sent, I did get the impression that people were willing to just serve for that short period of time. And no one raised their hand and objected to that period of time when we just asked that question. So I guess I would just feel strongly that we should proceed with that belief, but like Mark was saying, you know, that person who is appointed would have all the privileges of a person on a school committee, and they would continue to serve until that, I mean, we know the exact date of when we were going to make these appointments, and they would serve, you know, to that date and have full voting privileges as anyone else on the school committee. And so, you know, I don't think we're doing anyone a big disservice by allowing them to participate in the school committee for this 5 weeks or whatever it's going to be, and be able to vote on the next 4 people who would be serving. So I don't know. I mean, if there's some technicalities about, you know, can we set term limits as a board? Maybe, you know, maybe is some, people could challenge that, but if we say this is what we want and the person who's appointed agrees to it, I don't see a problem at all, because we're in uncharted territory, to speak.
Hey, Marie, before I recognize you, I just need to comment now on the legal side of this, and that after extensive discussions with our town council and indirectly through the Attorney General's office and other people, here's what the law says. The law says that appointments are until the next election. That's the state law. Okay? Appointments are until the next election.
Mm-hmm.
You know, however, the select board may choose to put a condition on that appointment, which might be to say, we would appoint somebody conditionally upon them agreeing to sign in advance a letter of resignation dated on a date certain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that might be subject to some challenge, but it might not be. You know, I mean, but we can't tell somebody your appointment is now through March 4th. That we cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we know. And so the issue is, you know, can we make an appointment that's contingent? And the answer is we can do anything we want to do that within this context in terms of the motion that we make. So I just wanted to make sure, Tom, that we were all aware of an appointment is an appointment. There's only one kind of appointment, and that's why I started out the meeting by saying, you know, school committee member that's placed on the school committee tonight got the same rights as somebody appointed in March as somebody elected. Marie.
Well, I think since it was announced to the community that we weren't going to do an interview process, that we were going to appoint for only a short term, to turn around now at the last minute and say, oh no, they're going to get the 4-year term, there could have been a lot of people out there who would want to have come in and wanted to come and take
4 months, not
4 months, yes,
okay.
4 months term. They would have wanted to step forward and to have that. So someone would get a true advantage to not having to go through the full interview process to get placed on here, and they would get equal treatment as someone who had to go through the full interview process. But I think it's a fairness, fundamental fairness of people being informed on when they could have come in and how they could have come in. To change the process tonight, when we're ready to appoint, I think I would prefer to stay the way we were. I was not at that meeting to make that decision. I don't think the thought process was in error, and I think anyone who does get the 30-day notice will be able to be working, their interview will be a month long to see how well they're doing, and they probably will have an advantage. Or maybe that person will decide after 1 month, you know, thank you, I really enjoyed it, but there might be other people ready to take the spot.
Okay. Ron, I want everybody to speak once first. Go ahead, Ron.
I just wanted to say I agree with Tom and Marie with that. You know, in theory, I can see where people would say it would make more sense one way or another, but, you know, we did decide publicly already the other night to do it this way, and I think we need to, you know, follow through on that, you know, just to be fair and equitable and transparent. To change it tonight would be, I almost feel like if we are going to change it, we would need to actually maybe announce that tonight and then reconvene. That would be the only fair way to do it, in my opinion.
Okay. Richard? I'm sorry, Brian, did you have something to say? Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I'd just like to agree with what's been said a couple of times, that the idea behind the motion last week was to be as transparent as possible and give people, everyone the opportunity to interview. a month from now. And I'd like to stick with that because I think that's the best idea.
Richard, did you want to say? Go ahead.
The true merit of an individual, say they did something in error, I stick by my guns. I think what the decision we made was flawed. We have 4 positions we're staffing. It's not just 1, it's 4. And the sole purpose of this position, and to expedite this position, is to get the school committee functional only. And if the school committee does not want to be functional, we can wait until February 25th. And everybody can line up and we can do all the interviews, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when I got to figuring what we did, you say, I'm going to put you on, but I'm going to have you sign a letter of resignation. I'm not sure how many people want to do that, but maybe we do have people in the audience.
We have,
Yeah.
for the record, we have.
Wait, I have the
Okay,
floor.
sorry.
I have the floor. So I'll stick with my original statement. I'm not going to waiver off even though it's a 7-to-1 ratio here, because I firmly believe that there's a different way of doing business. I regret that I participated in the motion and in wording as such, because I really don't agree with how we did that. And with that, I'll give it back to you, Mark.
Go ahead, Ryan.
To answer the question, there were 8 people who raised their hands based on what we said last week, that they would be willing to do that because that's what was announced. Nobody here said we don't want to be functional after tonight. We do want to be. You said that, and I don't think that's the case either. So we are looking forward to filling the position tonight, and 8 people are on our list willing to do that short term.
Can I ask the superintendent a question?
Sure.
When's the budget due?
We have a public hearing scheduled February 5th, due to the town manager by March 1st or something. Yeah.
So then there's
Pull up the calendar.
So then there's a real strong possibility, based on what we're saying here, that the person that we put on the committee is going to be there for the budget, and then they're not going to be here anymore. Is that correct? Being the budget's coming up on the 4th?
If March 4th was the last day
Yeah.
of
See, that's why
the
I think,
short-term-
that's why I'm concerned about the continuity of the position. And that's my basis for my stance on it, is there's the continuity of things that are going to be happening right now within the school system, the budget, et cetera, moving forward. And we're going to jerk somebody in there for 2 or 3 weeks and then throw them aside and put somebody else in, which it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. Wait a minute, hold on, guys. You can all beat me later. But that's my reason behind it. And a lot of the new members, both members on the school committee at this time, have not been through a budget cycle. And that's not a negative, it's just a fact. You have not been through the cycle, and the cycle is upon us. And the continuity for this cycle is pretty important. And that's why I'm so committed to where I think this person should stay on and go through the thing and not to be jerking around and change it 4 weeks in. Then that's my last comment.
Okay, Marie?
Well, I guess that brings up one of the questions that you said, what is important to who we appoint to this position, and that would be if anyone's not willing to go for the interviews on the 25th, that might be an issue that some of us might be interested in. But we can't question the people according to your process, correct?
Correct.
We can't say, can you raise your hand?
You can say it, but they don't have to answer it. Problem?
I was just going to say that a couple people even mentioned that they were interested in serving the short term and the, I guess, midterm until June, and then even some people mentioned serving, trying to get elected in June. So it's not like we don't have anybody that has shown interest. We have a lot of great candidates that have shown interest. So I think that's kind of a moot point.
Yeah, I just, go ahead, I'll let you.
You haven't talked, you sure?
Yeah, I'll get my.
First of all, we have 3 members, and the third one, who's not here tonight, has been through the budget process. And as Mark noted, we would be talking about the qualities that we want to see in people, and we have a number of people who have also been through the budget process before. So that's not going to be a problem. And nobody's automatically being thrown away on March 4th. They, as Marie pointed out, they get a 1-month interview process where they get to show they deserve to keep the spot, and other than Gerald, nobody else announced that they only wanted to work until March 4th. So I don't think that's...
Thank you. Okay.
That's what I thought.
I just will just comment personally that I think there's a lot of value in continuity. And I guess I would say, go so far as to say assured continuity. Continuity, we're talking 19 weeks, I counted the calendar, between now and June 11th. I think that 19 weeks continuity is a lot better than, the old phrase of lame duck, participant, and is somebody who's appointed for 4 weeks, a lame duck the day they get there, for 4 weeks, and then, if you will, potentially another lame duck, a short time after that. So I guess I share Mr. Foster's comments of a concern about the lack of continuity. Having said that, I also see what the
winds.
which way the wind's blowing here. And so I think we're ready to move forward within the context of where we are. I mean, unless Richard and I have been absolutely persuasive to any of the other people here, we're going to move forward.
Mark, just,
go ahead.
It just because you had talked about the opportunity to talk about the characteristics of the people we wanted on the board, on the committee, and in reviewing the paper, the letters of the people who were interested in being on the school committee, it's pretty exciting. I mean, we could get 4 people who would be a crackerjack crew. I mean, it's really encouraging to see the folks who came out, and I was glad to see some people speak. So the audience, who are the majority of people watching this show tonight, are going to be the people who are going to vote for the school committee. So you got your first chance to meet them in preparation for the June, election. And I hope that no one gets discouraged if they're not chosen tonight, because there are some really strong candidates, and the thing when you have a setback in any organization or any group is how well you can bounce back, and it's very encouraging with the people who came forward tonight. And I just want to make sure I want to thank you also for stepping up.
Yeah, thanks.
It'd be helpful if I could just maybe restate the steps in the process and how we got here tonight, just for my own sake. When we discussed this last time, it was determined that I think having someone who could fill a short-term position so the school committee could begin meeting and do the budget and some other essential functions was important. I thought I had heard from a consensus that not at the expense of giving 4 people the opportunity to apply for and interview for a term longer than 4 weeks. So I think the consensus I heard was a short-term appointment just to open the doors back up. As we noted, and to tie to Richard's point, once you appoint somebody, you cannot tell them to resign. But in discussing with council, you can make an appointment conditional, and the condition would be submitting your letter of resignation as you get sworn in, somewhat counterintuitively, but you submit a letter of resignation under the law for a certain date, and it's signed and it's effective on that date, and you can't come to February 28th and decide, this was kind of fun, I think I want to stay on. It's not allowed to do that. And the only reason that would be a condition was to fulfill what I think the wish of everyone here what was talked about. So, it's a little confusing. It is certainly I've never been a part of anything like this. It's the first time I've kind of seen it, but I think the intent we're trying to get to is what everyone I heard agreed to the last time we met. So I don't want to have everybody get off the same page in terms of what the overall goal was, even if the mechanisms to get there are a little clumsy.
I think we're already there, Stephen. So, I mean, based on the consensus, Marie.
And I guess we're talking about characteristics for this position.
Right, so I'm going to give you the floor back, but yeah, so I'm going to just make the call here that it looks like there isn't any kind of a move here to change the terms and conditions of which we are here tonight. And with that, I'd like to just move on and give people a chance to talk about the characteristics that we think we need to have in somebody who fills this position. So Marie, go ahead.
I think it's a very unusual position. We've never had that, as we described, not just the process, but what we're looking for, I think, is someone who understands not only the budgetary process, but sort of knows what a school committee does, what a select board does, finance committee, because we're throwing them right into the middle of the pot, and not just what these committees all do, but how they do it in Longmeadow, and what the underpinnings of our charter are. And I think that's really important, and someone who can help bridge those different groups, because we're going to have to move into an accelerated. We have only a few weeks to pull it all together, and so I think it would be very helpful to have someone who has that institutional knowledge of Longmeadow, as well as the character of not being one to bring people together rather than to cause any controversy, and understand how to move above the process. And I think having that sort of knowledge, I think, will be very important. So I'm looking for experience in the whole process, whether it's in the school committee or select board, or understanding the charter or how our boards are working.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to offer their thoughts on the process? Ryan, go ahead.
Sure. So, first, I want to echo the comments that were made before. Thank you to all the people who put their names forward. We appreciate that very much. And I would also echo what Tom said, that it's exciting to see people with such good qualities put their, for this position, put their hands up and want to join us. So we have, although we will only pick one, I think we could pick 3, we could pick 4. I think it's all great of you to all come out here with your different skill sets. For me, what I'm looking for is someone who has experience with what we're doing here, someone who has knowledge of how schools work and how schools operate from top to bottom, and how school committees function. I think it's just really important for us to not have a learning curve, so I agree with what Marie said, and look forward to somebody with education experience and school committee experience joining us.
Yes, I can add that. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I was just going to say, also, thank you to all the people that put their names in, and hopefully we'll have a great turnout for the interviews in February, and also for the June election. There'll be a lot of seats vacant for that. So it's important, to me, all the things people have mentioned already. I think knowing the roles and responsibilities of a school committee member is extremely important. Someone who does have some experience with what the school committee does. Someone who's a really good communicator and knows how to collaborate well. Just a really solid team player. And, just someone who also just wants to help the district move the schools forward as they already are, and we're always looking to improve.
Okay, I guess I've gotten a little bit more specific than in fact what everybody else had. I'm really focused on one thing, and that's a budget. The schools control $36 million, Marty, something like that, of the town's $67 million budget, the town is chosen to establish as a town form of government what I'll call civilian oversight to that budget. And that isn't a comment that, our administration doesn't put together a great budget. They have year after year and will continue to do so. But we've elected a town form of government, elected to have a town form of government that has civilian control. And I think that that's of the utmost importance over the next 4 to 5 or 6 weeks. And I think it was pointed out that, when you look at the current members of the school committee, that's not been the strength that they focused on over the last 8 months or 6 months, because they've had some other distractions. And so being able to look at the budget, delve into it, understand it, ask pertinent, important, and probing questions, and make sure that it is what the town of Longmeadow residents want to spend their $36 million on is critical. And it's even more so when you look at the agreement that we just came to, is this is a 5-week appointment. Maybe it's through March 4th. That, you know, I know from my experience on the select board, and I assume from the school committee, you know, you're gonna have to be there 2 or 3 weeks to even, you know, find your way to the superintendent's office. And I know that's a little bit of simplification, but you know, to understand how our budgeting system works and what things mean and where they go. And I'm not sure in a 5-week appointment that we really want somebody who takes them 3 weeks to get up to speed. Because the whole budget needs to be reviewed certainly by the end of that 5-week period. That's our goal. And so my focus really is on getting somebody who not necessarily, I knows budgeting, but somebody who knows school department budgeting, and in my mind, knows Long Meadow School Department budgeting would even be better. So, you know, I think that's really important. It's clearly, it'd be lovely to have somebody who's got long-term continuity, got more than 5 weeks, somebody who can, you know, not be seen as a lame duck, so that if they say something, they're going to be gone in 4 or 5 weeks. But, you know, but actually takes this to heart. And so those are the primary characteristics that I'm looking for, only because that's the time of year we're at. There's a lot at stake here, and I think that we need to be true to the form of government that the people in Long Meadow have set up, which is the elected or appointed, or whatever it is, school committee oversight to this process. Those are my comments. I don't know if does anybody else have any other comments? So, having gone through that process, what I'd like to do is, prior to entertaining a motion, because we have had this discussion, my concern would be that, you know, we've got 3 people and we end up with a nomination process that's whoever I call on first seems to be the person who gets nominated, and I hate doing that because it turns it into a really, you know, popularity contest of who calling me, some kind of thing. So what I was hoping to do is see if there was a consensus that other people saw from the discussions based on the resumes we've seen or the discussions we've heard today from people, and based on the comments that people have at least expressed and what they're looking for in members. And I'm going to just ask if anybody else has an opinion on that before I go
I'm a
forward.
little confused. What are you asking?
What I'm looking for, Marie, is to somebody say, it sounds like, you know, based on the discussions we've had, that this person probably is the person we, you know, and see if we can come to a consensus, rather than say, who's Mark calling on first to nominate somebody.
Okay.
Now, we can do it the other way too, but we may end up in a position of going through 3 or 4 nominations before we get somebody seconded and vote and
So, in other words, we should just throw down people who we feel meet some of those characteristics.
That's
Okay.
what I'm looking for, and
Do
I
we list
understand
more
that
than
that's a-
one, or do we just list?
You can do whatever you want to, Marie, and I'm putting this out, recognizing it gets a little tough doing this about people in public, so I want the comments to be very positive rather than.
Okay.
Before Marie does that, can I have one question?
Go ahead.
I know we can't ask the audience members any questions, but based on the letters we received, I just wanted to see, I think Mr. Lowe mentioned it before, if anyone was not interested anymore, how would they communicate that?
I think they would tell us if we were to select them, they would say, oh, actually, I don't want to be considered.
Okay, thank you.
Can I have one more procedure?
Sure,
How many
Ryan.
votes are needed? Just a majority?
Yeah, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us, which is nice, 4 people. It's a majority vote.
Sorry, Marie, go ahead.
Go ahead, Marie.
Okay, so everyone who's been interviewed here would make fabulous school committee. I mean, I hope they all come back on the 25th. When we're looking at institutional knowledge, of Long Meadow institutional knowledge, the 2 people that comes to the forefront for me are Larry Starr and Janet Robinson. I think they both dealt with budgets. Mr. Starr has a vast knowledge of the whole process, as well as the various committees, having just worked on the Charter Committee also. And Janet's actually recently gone through an actual school committee budget. So when we're talking about institutional knowledge, those are the two names that pop up. If I've missed someone else, all I have is the short letters, so I might have missed someone else's resume that I didn't know about.
Okay, Ryan?
Well, Gerald knows budgets also. I don't want you to sit back there and not get recognized, because he's been on the committee, so he would know as well. And I think also Susan's experience as a superintendent means that she understands this whole process well, although not in Long Meadow. So taking the institutional Long Meadow knowledge part out of it, she also, but I agree with Marie about Janet's experience being also valuable to point out.
Any other? Tom?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ron.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree with what everyone said. In addition, I think that Jamie Hench had a lot of experience with budget, financial things, looking at his resume. He's worked at a school as well, granted not Long Meadow, but at a school. So I'd just like to add him to the list as well.
Or any other, Tom?
Yeah, I guess I would, and looking at the names mentioned, I just think it'd be pretty easy having Janet step up to the position. I love some of the other people, though.
All right, we've exhausted this process, I think, unless, Bill, you want to add anything?
No, I
Or
would have
Richard?
said that there's several people out there that I would, in a heartbeat, nominate, but for the fact that the getting up to speed, even though they probably could, but I think people who've gone through the process in Long Meadow are probably better choices.
Okay. Richard, you're the only one in.
I don't have
say
any
anything?
comments.
Okay. I think I expressed my opinion last Monday night only because I originally reached out to somebody, but I agree that the candidates are awfully good candidates, but I, again, said that I thought that not just budget knowledge, not just school knowledge, but Long Meadow budget knowledge was my number one issue from day one. So, I think that I made that pretty clear. So at this point, I'm going to open the floor up for a motion. Nobody's making a motion, I'll make a motion. Go ahead.
No, I'll make a motion that we appoint Janet Robinson for the term and to bring the school committee back to a quorum.
Okay, there's a
Second.
motion made and seconded. I got it, okay. That motion is not in compliance with our prior agreement, and so I've accepted the motion and the second, but we may need somebody to make an offer an amendment to that motion. Because as it stands, the motion to appoint Janet Robinson is not conditional. And if the motion can pass,
Right.
as it is now,
So you're looking for an
no,
amendment?
I'm just stating a fact. I mean, I'm sitting here saying, I heard what everybody said 35 minutes ago, and I now heard a motion. So the motion's been made and seconded. I'm looking for discussion.
Well, can I amend my original motion?
You can offer an amendment.
Okay. Yeah, the amendment would be that the appointment would be a conditional appointment that would...
That's out of order. It can't be a conditional appointment. It can
has to be
be
with
a contingent appointment, but
contingent-
not a conditional appointment.
Okay, so the appointment would be contingent, the contingency on the appointment would be that the individual, or Janet, that individual would step down from that position after a vote was made for a new school committee, or for the four new appointed officers, I guess. So,
I don't, I'm gonna help you here.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you want it written?
yeah.
It's not how I want it written. So a vote would be to place somebody to fill the vacancy on the school committee, contingent upon that person signing a letter of resignation dated whatever the date we decide, prior to their being sworn in by the town clerk. Stephen?
Can I make a recommendation on the date?
No.
Okay.
All right. So do we need to second the amendment?
No, somebody needs to make the motion. I'm not making the motion. Are you going to make that motion?
Let's say so
Say so
moved.
moved.
As moved, so moved.
We'll have to do it again.
Jackie, did you capture that?
And then we have to second that movement
You
motion.
can't.
Is that
Bill, are
the-
you still going to second that one?
Second.
Okay, there is no date in that motion. Somebody fill in the blank.
The motion said that we could make one later, didn't it?
We probably ought to
Are we
put
going to have
it in the
another joint
amendment.
committee to do that?
No, we ought to put it
I
in the
like you
amendment.
guys, but not that much.
We ought to make the amendment so that the motion is all-inclusive.
So you want to change the amendment?
No, I mean, Marie, it needs to, and, you know, it needs to say that we place, the motion is to place Janet Robinson on the school committee, you know, contingent upon her submitting a letter of resignation to the town clerk that is dated, well, it's our decision. It's not Mr. Crane's decision. It's our
No,
decision.
but I'm saying, what date are you looking, you said you
I'm not-
wanted to add that to it.
Well, the question is, you want the date February 5th, or February 28th, March 5th, or
Well, she was-
June 11th? I mean,
Well,
Is
the
it March
interviews are
4th?
the
We're gonna be
25th.
Oh, you weren't here for the other meeting.
So
but
we
the
want
interviews
it
are
before
on the
that.
28th.
So
The
shouldn't
28th,
interview
but
us now
when
as
do we
well.
appoint 1 week
Like a
after
week
that?
before.
March 4th.
Or even
So
just
it would be
the
March 4th.
Oh, I thought the person was going to be able to
Well, that-
apply for, like, the
You can do it the
Yeah, they
day
can,
before
but
the
they
interview.
can't. They can apply on the 25th, but they cannot be appointed until March 4th?
correct.
So they'll still be on
No,
the
they
committee.
apply on the 21st, the interview's the 25th, and they cannot be appointed until the 4th.
So if we
That's
have the resignation due March 4th, they can be resigning and swearing in again the same day.
Right.
Right.
But then they're on the committee for the interviews.
That's
I just
correct.
know if that would be awkward.
Yes.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
Well,
right, there should be some benefit.
But on that topic, couldn't someone just choose not to sit up here and just go sit in the audience? Even if they are,
But can they vote?
Well, they should be able to vote. I mean, we vote.
that's the whole
when
reason.
when we run,
Yeah, we
elect
don't want them
a
voting
chair
for
of our
themselves.
committee.
So-
When we elect the chair of our
okay.
committee, we vote.
That's
people vote for
true.
Okay,
themselves. You know, that isn't a problem.
Yeah, I'm going to try to take a little bit back control of this, because I intentionally let this run out because I knew where this was going. I've had this exact discussion with our town attorney and a few other people. So the issue is, you know, should this person be able to vote as part of the next appointment cycle?
Of course they should.
If they're a member of the school committee, they will be on that appointment cycle. If we think that they are good enough to be on the school committee now, do we not also think that they might be good enough to help us appoint the other members for that next 15 weeks? And so, I have my own opinion, but I think that what I'd like to do is just suspend this vote, even though there's a motion on the floor here, to talk about this concept of, does the, and in this case, we're talking about Janet Robinson, because that's whose name was in the motion, should she participate in the system of appointing people on February? And the more bigger question is, if she's in that system for appointing, you know, if she's applying for that position, now what does that mean? And therein lies the issue of making this appointment for 5 weeks instead of for 19 weeks. But we're there.
Can I just talk schedule and logistics just for a second, please?
Stick to schedule and logistics.
Right. I conferred with the superintendent, and the budget under the bylaws has to be the town manager by the 8th.
8th of March.
8th of March. And if the intent of this is to have somebody who can work on the budget, then on the schedule, then it should be effective through March 7th. And then the other appointments, if you've done the interviews and everything else, I don't have to, I mean, just, I guess we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it, but if the intent of this is to work on the budget, then that would be through March 7th.
I mean, we can interview people on February 25th as we plan, and not appoint them until March 6th. We don't have to appoint them on March 5th, that's 7 days later. We must appoint them 30 days later, but it's somewhere between 7 and 30 days is when we must make those appointments.
But what you can't have is appointing 4 people on February 25th and have this other person, so you can't have 8 school committee members.
Right.
I think that's what we're trying to avoid.
Right,
I get it.
yeah.
Mark,
No, we can't.
can I approach to make things easier for you all?
Sure.
She's gonna say now.
I know this is completely out of order.
It sure is. Go ahead.
I'm Janet Robinson, live on Canterbury Lane. I am flattered that you are all wishing to appoint me. However, I would like to make sure that you all are aware that in my letter of intent to seek being put on this committee, I had requested that you all reconsider the length of the appointment. The reason for that is after having sat on the school committee for 3 years and served for 3 years, I think a 4-week appointment that doesn't give anyone any time to get up to speed with what they need to be doing. Whether that be me as someone who has already sat on the committee and needs to re-get up to speed, or somebody who has never sat on the committee to get an idea. And in that aspect, whether you want to call my vision of the person who you're appointing then for 4 weeks, whether you want to call it a lame duck or not, truly that's what that position is going to be, because that person is not going to have the knowledge, not going to be able to get up to speed to be making informed decisions, whether it be on the budget, whether it be on curriculum, whether it be on any decision. So if truly what you are looking for is a body to fill the seat for the 4 weeks, and then the expectation is that person has to reapply, that's asking a lot of the person, I think, who is applying, or seeking the appointment. And if that is the case, I am going to tell you all that I am very flattered, but I will respectfully decline. So that may make your decision easier going forward in debate of who you would like to appoint for the 4 week and not, debating the nuances of that, since I heard very clearly that the committee would like to maintain, because of what was said at Monday night's meeting, maintain the initial appointment of just the 4 to 5 weeks. And I respect that. I certainly understand that, but I am the type of person, and those of you who have worked with me in the past know that I am the type of person who, if I am appointed, elected, selected, whatever word you want to use, when I get in, I roll up my sleeves and I work. And to come in and roll up my sleeves and work really hard for 4 weeks and then have to reapply is a bit disheartening. And that's just me personally. That is not any judgment on you as joint committees. That is certainly your decision. So with that, I would respectfully withdraw my name from consideration. So I'd just like to thank you and hope this will make the debate a little bit easier. So thank you for letting me speak out of order.
Thank you. Based on that, is there a request to withdraw the motion? Tom, you made the motion. Do you withdraw the motion? Or
Yes,
not?
it
You don't-
sounds, it sounds like it would be appropriate to withdraw the motion at this point.
Thank you. Okay.
So, and I guess.
So, can I ask
we
you?
have to discuss
Go ahead,
that.
Ryan.
Because this is a joint committee, Bronwyn and I get to participate fully, right?
Yes.
So I guess I would make a motion to all the contingent things that were typed before and said previously added to a motion to make Susan Bell the member of the committee.
I'll
I'm
second.
sorry, I didn't
No,
memorize
that's good.
everything you said last
Yeah,
time.
Yeah, right, yeah. It was a group effort. I will second that motion.
And then, now can I speak on it?
Yes, the motion's made and seconded. Go ahead.
So the point's been brought up that if somebody had the shortened term of 4 to 5 weeks, that they wouldn't be able to operate fully. But if they were appointed until June, they would, and that doesn't make any sense, because whether you're done in February 24th or done in June 10th, you are still working from now until February 24th. So regardless of whether or not it's till June or shortened, this person has to come in and work with us over the 5 weeks. So that argument actually doesn't work out. So last week, when we were making this The point was to make it transparent and give everybody the opportunity to come out, interview fully, the way we did it last time, the way Long Meadow has done it previously. And although it's going to be a pain for whoever gets this spot, I understand that, and it'll be a little choppy for all of us. We appreciate you all volunteering for that. It's still the right way to do it in my mind, because it gives everybody the opportunity to interview and apply the way Long Meadow has done it previously.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I just want to be clear, because even I don't remember the date, but was the date we still hadn't discussed whether the date was prior to or post the appointments. And
So can I keep talking about my motion then?
let's just clarify the motion
Okay.
first, Ryan, okay?
Okay, yeah, so I think I guess I'd call it the cleanest way of doing this would be make it the morning of the interviews. I wouldn't want the appointee, or not the appointee, the person filling the position, to be able to vote for him or herself or against anyone else. I think again, trying to make this as transparent and clean as possible. And I want all these people to apply and come back, because I agree with everyone that their resumes were very good. I still want it to be just completely above board, so I wouldn't want the new member, although we're going to be working very closely with them for 4 weeks and change, or whatever it ends up being. I don't think they should have that advantage of voting for themselves and against anyone else.
Ryan,
So
I
I'd wanna
suggest that it be February 22nd, that's the Friday
Perfect.
before the Monday. I don't know that we can make it Monday
Okay.
morning or whatever.
Sure. I agree with
Okay,
that. So my
so-
motion would have
Just a second.
contingent upon the person signing something that says that they would resign effective February 22nd.
Contingent upon,
2019.
it's Susan Bell, and contingent upon her submitting to the town
Sorry,
clerk,
Susan.
a letter of resignation dated February 22nd, 2019. That's the
Correct,
motion.
that's my motion.
Okay,
Correct.
and is there a second for that motion? Tom, you would second
Well,
it.
no, I would like to discuss that.
Well, you can't discuss the motion until somebody
Yeah.
seconds it.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded by Ms. Monahan. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, when you look at a school committee that only has 3 members, and it needs 4 to be a quorum, are we setting ourselves up if we only have 3 members voting on a person to be, on these 4 new members? I mean, I think we have to let that 4th person vote.
You're
so there's a
gonna be there,
quorum.
Tom.
The select
We're gonna
board's
have 8.
voting, there's going to be 9 of us.
Right, but in terms
8
of
of
the
us.
school committee themselves, I don't think that they meet the requirement. And so I'd ask myself, should they vote at all if they don't have a quorum? But I'll just throw that out there.
Mark, may I?
Yeah, go ahead, I was going to
As a joint committee, we have a quorum, so we're all set with
Right.
that.
Tom, state law says that there were nobody on the school committee the select board would appoint.
Would appoint.
So I got no problem with that at all. Marie?
I think the whole point of the interim was for the budget and for us financially to keep going and signing all the warrants that we say needs to be signed for teachers to get paid. So if you stop that person on the 22nd and you're not appointing until the 4th, you're now all of a sudden left with a 2-week gap again of a non-financial.
10
And
day
it's a
gap.
very essential time when we're pushing the final budget through, and that's why we said we wanted people with institutional knowledge
Mark, will
for the
you
budget.
entertain a comment that might help again?
Go ahead. But you got to come forward so that people at home can hear you, Larry.
Since you have the right to make the appointment conditional, can you also not make the appointment conditional on that person abstaining from any votes on the replacements?
No, we cannot do that.
Can't.
No. They're a school committee member, they're allowed to vote.
Okay, then that answers.
Yeah, I've checked that.
Can they abstain if they wanted to?
Oh, yeah, they can abstain if they want to, but we can't,
I was just curious.
you know, anything.
So,
Right.
I hear your comment, that makes a lot of sense. When are we voting on the budget, Marty?
If you created a quorum this evening, you could conceivably vote following the budget hearing on the 5th of February. That may not be enough time. The committee may be more comfortable having another meeting following the budget hearing. That could happen on February 7th or February 12th, I suppose.
Okay. We've been letting all kinds of rules break here, people speak. Somebody in the back has a question. You're going to have to come forward if you want to comment.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Just with regards to what exactly the procedure would be it be possible for the person appointed to serve during the questioning or interview process, they wouldn't necessarily need to abstain from vote, but would it not be a conflict of interest for them to vote for themselves? Would they have to recuse themselves?
Yes, they would have to recuse themselves. They could not vote for
Why would
themselves.
they have to recuse themselves? I
Because
mean,
that's what the state law says.
For the,
You can't vote for
appointment?
yourself for an appointment, right?
really?
Right, right. So,
Because we vote, people vote for themselves to be chair of a committee, but
but
why wouldn't they be
that's
able to vote for themselves?
because that's a procedure for, within the committee, but this isn't a, this would be an appointment. It can't be
But the
done.
motions already has the date, and if the date passes, it makes the whole conversation about being a part of the selection process.
Well, but Ryan's point is, and it's a good point, is that, we can change that date to March 7th or 8th or 9th and make our appointments on March 7th or 8th or 9th, and that way, this person will be there through the budget process. We're not compelled to make an appointment 7 days after the interviews. The town procedures, which is, it's actually our bylaw, 3-505, why I know that is beyond me, but it says that it will be at least no less than 7 nor more than 30 days. We have that window to vote after the conclusion of the interviews. So we have that with that window, we can work that window, and we need not decide, then when we're going to make the vote, but we can look at our budget calendar and say, we want this interim position to be through the approval of the budget, if that's what we want. Mr. Duquette.
Okay, briefly, here's the deal. I have been on the school committee. I teach public budgeting for a living. I'm not going to need weeks to ramp up, and I'm not interested in the job. So that's
We already-
what you.
thank you.
That's how this would work well. You don't have any of these issues.
Right.
So, just so
Okay,
you
thank
know,
you.
we don't have to go round
Thank
and
you,
round.
but we're not, thank you. But we've got a motion on the floor.
Can I still speak on it?
You can.
So if we're interviewing on the 25th, we can appoint on Monday, March 4th, correct?
Right, which, by the way, is the date of a regular select board meeting, so we would be deferring regular select board
So the point of my question to Marty about us voting on the budget was basically if we don't have a meeting that week, it's actually not a problem to go from the Friday the 22nd because of the weekend where we wouldn't be meeting. And then that week from the interview to the vote, we'd actually be going one business week without the quorum.
which is what we just did.
Right.
So I'm saying if there's no vote scheduled for that week, that's not actually a big deal.
So you want to go back to the February 22nd date?
Which was what my motion said, yes.
Okay.
I'm just pointing out that if there's nothing planned for that week, that it's not actually problematic.
Okay. Go ahead, Marie, we're still speaking to the motion.
Just want to ask the town manager and superintendent, what's the problem with the 22nd to March 4th being a non-quorum school committee?
For the
He's got no problem with it.
I mean, as I've said, it's better to have a quorum than not have a quorum. It's better to have a committee that can conduct business than one that can't. But I'm not seeing any problem with going from February 22nd to March 4th. Because conceivably, there'd be enough time in February for the quorumed school committee to review and vote the budget and get it to the town manager.
So I also want to point out, one of the reasons we're here tonight is because the primary and secondary school committee member who was authorized to sign warrants resigned.
No,
But-
I was second on warrants, but not on payroll.
Okay, second on warrant, okay.
But not on payroll, that's the part
But-
that's missing.
But the theory is that between now and February 22nd, somebody who's going to be here that additional week will be authorized to sign those warrants.
Okay.
And that, Marie, was the critical factor in my mind that brought us here. So a week without a quorum, barring any phenomenal emergency, need not have the same impact then that it does now. Ryan, is that?
That's my point, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Agreed.
Tom?
Well, in terms of the interviewing process, you know, I mean, I'm very aware there's 5 selectmen here and 2 people from the school committee. And so in the interviewing process, there would be 3 people from the school committee. But I just would see an advantage of having 4 people who have an understanding of the schools and school committee in that interview process, you know,
Okay.
so.
Point's made.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a motion on the table.
Roll call vote, Mark. This vote has to be a roll call, just want, before you call for a vote, a voice vote, it has to be a roll call.
Right, it's all appointments do
Yeah, so I
have
just
to be
wanna-
roll call.
Rose was clear, it has to be a roll call.
Right, you're right. Okay, so, is there any more discussion on the motion?
I just want to be sure, the motion as it stands, would the person be part of the interviewing, or they would not?
They would not be. They would be asked to submit a letter of resignation dated February 22nd,
Okay.
effective February 22nd, prior to being sworn in by the town clerk.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they shouldn't, probably ought to apply for that additional appointment,
Right.
or one of what will then be 4 appointments. So, okay? All right, I see no other comments on the motion, so we're going to ask for a roll call vote. Jackie, you're going to have to call a roll call and get these votes verbally.
Richard? I abstain.
Marie?
Yes.
Bronwyn? Yes. Mark?
Yes.
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 Okay, so the vote is 6 to 0 with 1 abstention. And so based on that, the Select Board, School Committee Joint Board is placing Susan Bell on the school committee, contingent upon her delivering to the town clerk a letter of resignation effective February 22nd, 2019, prior to being sworn in. That was the motion. It also requires that hopefully she can be sworn in as early as tomorrow morning, so that the school committee can do their thing. And my understanding is there's a school committee meeting scheduled for Tuesday
Yep,
of next week.
correct.
So they will do that.
Hearing, no, that's the budget hearing.
It's a budget hearing, but there are some business matters that we could fold into that evening as well if the committee, we do that, yeah. Yeah, reorganize, identify a chair, have a hearing, conduct some business.
Excuse me, I again want to thank everybody who submitted their name, allowed us to go through this very, very public process. I think it was good for the community and good for the individuals, but as promised, what I want to do is make sure everybody understands our next steps. And our next steps is to fill beginning on February 25th, 4 positions for the school committee. We will do that by a policy and procedures which has been adopted independently or individually by the school committee and the select board. That policy is available at the town clerk's office and with the select board's office. I truly encourage everybody who applied tonight to go through that process, to submit their application. It's literally a questionnaire with a potential resume, but then we will come in for question, and it will be a full question period. The vote system, it does require that anybody receive a majority of the votes of the people present and eligible to vote. So if there are, at that point, I guess 5 and 3, and 8 of us there, that means you'll need to receive 5 votes to be appointed at that time. Again, those applications are due at the town clerk's office by Thursday, February 21st at noon. And the interview process begins on Monday, February 25th at 7 PM here in this room. And so I'm going to just, before I call for a motion to adjourn, ask if anybody has any other questions about that process. Excuse me, Bronwyn.
The only question I was going to ask, I know that at the last meeting, I said that it would be beneficial to the people on vacation that we interview on the 25th. And I thought of it afterwards, and a couple people mentioned it, that if there are 2 nights of interviews, would it be beneficial to offer one during vacation? And then if people can't attend that one, or no?
Yeah, I just don't know, haven't thought through the answer to that. I think we're going to set the interview for February 25th. It will be a joint meeting of the boards. We don't, we have 4 people to appoint. We might get 4 applicants, and we might get 44 applicants. And if we have 44 applicants, we're going to be here more than one night. And at that point, we will likely, as we see that, get together and try to set a second evening and tell people what nights are what. But we cannot do it prior to February 25th, the first interview, because that's the way it's already been posted. My understanding is we would likely continue the meeting on the 22nd, where we begin the interviews, and we'll say we'll continue it till maybe the 25th. We would continue it to the 26th, or maybe to some other date. But the process would be, it'd be a single meeting that's not adjourned and continued. And we not be able, I'd love to do it one night, but having done this before, if we get a lot of people here, it's not going to happen. And so let's just play it, I hate to say this, but play it by ear as we get closer, and we'll communicate. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor? Folks, thank you very much. And again, my appreciation to the folks who have applied and been considered tonight.
Would you sign?